Hi, and welcome to Better Boating in Connecticut. I'm your host, Wendy Flynn, and today we're going to talk about BUI, or Boating Under the Influence. So today joining me is Captain Eric Lundin of our EnCon Police, and we'll also be joined by our special guest, Johanna Krebs of MAD. So, Captain, I was wondering if you could tell me the differences between boating under the influence and, drinking and driving on the road.
Well, certainly you have to think about the idea that being on a vessel, you've got a few other factors to deal with as an operator or as a passenger that are not seen on the land, obviously. You're going to be on board a vessel. You're going to have to get acclimated to an unstable surrounding while aboard a vessel, and that's for either the operator or any of the passengers aboard, and that can depend on the different size of the vessel. Smaller boats are going to be more instability problems. Another factor is that certainly if you've been on a vessel before, someone who comes off the boat back onto land, it takes a little while to kind of get your sea legs back as it is, so you can catch up on your balance and your own stability. So that's a normal factor of being on board a boat, and there's several other things that we'll talk about as we go on.
Okay. So, what about passenger safety and drinking? Do they have to be aware of some of these factors? Getting their sea legs, maybe the heat, the sun, stuff like that.
Alcohol affects anyone and everyone who's on a boat who's having alcohol, drinking while they're on board a vessel, whether it be the operator or passenger, as I mentioned. Some of the things that we're going to have to look at is that just being on the boat, between the sea legs problems, the balance issues, alcohol is going to impair different people's judgment, their perception, their vision, sometimes, yes, their balance, and whether it be the passenger or the operator. So that we also need to, besides that, they're already getting affected by, you're usually going out on a nice day. It's usually a sunny day, windy, a little bit like today. Perhaps you're on a motorboat where you're getting vibrations from the motor and from the boat going through the water. So all those are factors that are going to affect people's perception, their balance, their judgment in the first place. Add alcohol on top of that, then you've complicated the problem even more so for an operator or a passenger on board a boat.
Okay. So, can you tell us a little bit about blood alcohol content levels? What does that mean? What exactly does it mean to an operator?
Whether it be driving under the influence charges or boating under the influence charges, we rely on chemical tests that tell us eventually what the alcohol level is in the operator's system. So we're talking about a BAC, or a blood alcohol content, which is the amount of alcohol in a percentage per weight in the blood of that operator at the time of the operation.
Is it the same for driving on a car versus a boat? Is it 0.08?
In Connecticut, it is the same level. For driving under the influence, 0.08 BAC or above, as well as operating a vessel or boating under the influence, a 0.08 BAC or above is considered to be under the influence by Connecticut's courts.
Okay. I was reading somewhere that for kids, for people under 21, there's a BAC of 0.02. Why wouldn't it be 0?
In 0.02 for Connecticut, you've got to be able to detect that there's alcohol first in the person's system anyway. So we do have a lower level for it.
Okay, so then they could, if someone underage was in fact drinking, they could be charged with, a BUI
Correct.
or something like that?
In Connecticut, under 21, there should be no alcohol being consumed by someone under 21 in the first place. But if they're on board a vessel and their alcohol is detected, they could be charged if it's 0.02 or above for a blood alcohol content.
Okay, great. Can you tell us about some of the trends in BUI over the year? What have they been doing?
Well, in my experience and what I've seen in doing some of this teaching around the country, and from other agencies serving other states around the country as well, we've noticed that for the most part, boating is recreation. And if you're going out on a vessel, for the most part, I can have my alcohol, I can have a beer. It's not unusual many years ago for that to happen, and it still is in most cases. But the awareness has gotten there that alcohol is certainly a factor for someone operating on a vessel, and as I said, also for the passengers as well, and it endangers their safety.
All right, great, thank you. How does, when you're out on the water patrolling, how do you identify someone as possibly, having a BUI?
Well, one of the first things we're going to see is that they're probably operating the vessel a little bit differently than normal. Of course, if you've taken a safe boating class, you know that there's a bunch of navigation rules that you need to know. You need to know how you have the proper safety equipment on board and so forth. But for the most part, it's operation, not unlike on land, driving under the influence. We're going to notice if somebody happens to miss perhaps a no-wake sign and go through a no-wake area where they should have slowed down. Perhaps they're coming inside or too close to a swim area. Perhaps they're swerving back and forth a little bit. The boat sometimes may stop or start very quickly or abruptly, and that will catch our eye, and then we might just check them out and talk to the operator, see what's going on.
Great, so if you were to stop someone, what could they expect?
A normal stop for someone operating a vessel will happen for whatever the case happens to be. The operator will be asked to provide their safe boating certificate if they're required to have it. If they're operating the vessel, we'll notice how many people are on board and that there's safety equipment, life jackets for everybody that needs to be on board. If it's other safety equipment, whether it needs to have a fire extinguisher, flares, etc. And we're also going to check for the vessel registration. And while we're doing that, we're going to be probably talking with the operator and understanding if there perhaps any other clues of them maybe being under the influence of alcohol. Say if there are open coolers of beer or other drinks on board, empties in the boat, perhaps there's some other detection of alcoholic beverage on their breath or something of that nature. Once we start doing that, we may take it to the next step, or if we think they might be under the influence, the operator, we will pull them out of their vessel, put a life jacket on them, bring them aboard our vessel, and we'll do some under the influence tests, field sobriety tests that are done directly on the board of the boat.
So if I'm out on the river and, I see someone kind of driving erratically, what could I do? Should I approach them? Can I call someone?
Be a very good reporter. We ask you to be a very good witness as best as possible without getting yourself involved. Make sure the scene is safe, that nothing's happening to the people on board, but you can just say, give us a call at our dispatch, Environmental Conservation Police Dispatch. It's 860-424-3333. That's 860-424-3333. Or if you see something that looks extremely out of the normal or appears to be an emergency, call 911.
Okay, great. Thank you. So if let's say someone was arrested for a BUI, or, you did all their tests and everything like that, what would happen to their boating certificate? How is it affected?
If someone is arrested for boating under the influence, first of all, we will arrest them on site and then take them and be processed. And depending if we can find another sober boater, another operator, the vessel may or may not be impounded. We may take it, and it might be impounded at a local dock or one of our facilities. And certainly the voyage is going to be terminated.
Can you tell us or give us a little bit of a description about Operation Drywater? I've heard about that a couple times.
Thank you for asking. Operation Drywater is a nationwide enforcement initiative that's been going on since 2009. It's a nationwide enforcement initiative and awareness campaign of boating under the influence around the whole country. And since 2009, its inception up through 2015, it's proven to show that fatalities have actually dropped 24% due to boating under the influence. Heightened patrols are usually the norm on the enforcement weekend, which is usually somewhere in the late June or early July, or surrounding the July 4th weekend.
All right, great. Okay, so thank you very much. We're going to take a quick PSA, a quick commercial break, and we'll be back with our special guest.
This summer, law enforcement agencies across the country are participating in Operation Drywater and looking for impaired drivers.
Whether you are on the water or on land, you'll be going nowhere fast if you choose to operate a vessel or a vehicle while impaired.
Drunk boating becomes drunk driving, and law enforcement officers will be on the lookout for those who choose to operate under the influence.
Alcohol use is the #1 factor in recreational boater deaths. Be smart, be safe, and never boat under the influence.
Be advised, I'll be arresting an impaired boater and requesting assistance. 10-4, I'll meet you at the boat ramp.
Hi, and welcome back to Better Boating in Connecticut. Captain Lundin and I are joined by our special guest, Johanna Krebs from MAD. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having us.
So before we jump into a little bit of what MAD does and their mission, Captain, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the trends in boating under the influence.
Certainly. Let me just bring out the fact that in the last 10 years in Connecticut, we've had at least about half of our boating fatalities have been in alcohol involved. We're finding that a factor is alcohol involvement in most of those. On a nationwide level, I know that it's also one of the leading factors in most of the fatalities that are reported nationwide.
So with all of the fatalities and the BUI accidents that we have, what's your involvement with MAD? It's, how did we get connected with MAD?
Well, some years ago, actually, I believe it was about 2009, we had a fatal boating accident that Mothers Against Drunk Driving eventually got involved in with their victim advocate services. And I got to know Johanna through a court case there as that was wound through the court system. And they've also been involved in some of our other outreach efforts and supported us in our Operation Dry Water and other BUI spot checks that we do at a lot of our launches through the years. So we want to thank them for their help and for their support in getting out the word about not boating under the influence, boating sober.
Great, thank you. So Johanna, do you want to just, elaborate a little bit about that? How do you, work with DEEP,
Sure.
Coast Guard, whoever you work with?
Absolutely.
And then...
So our mission at MAD is to eliminate the crime of drunk driving, help fight drugged driving, support victims of these violent crimes, and to prevent underage drinking. When it comes to operation of a motor vehicle or a boat or any sort of thing where you're in operation of a vehicle, anytime you put impairment involved with that, it's going to cause grave consequences. It could cause victims, it could cause other types of arrests and so on. So when we worked with Captain Lundin on a case where there were victims involved in a boating accident, boating crash, we knew that we had a great partnership there because it's not just our roadways that we needed to keep safe, we have waterways as well. So MAD in Connecticut partnered with EnCon Police and with DEEP to continue to echo that message, but MAD nationally works on a very great level with Operation Dry Water, and when it comes to making sure that the public is aware that whenever you get behind the wheel of a boat and you're under the influence, it can have the same effects as if you're on the roadways.
So with, drunk driving on our roads, I know that you can get your driver's license suspended. Is that the same for, boating under the influence? Can you get your boating license suspended?
I'll just go ahead and field that one. Yes, when you are arrested for boating under the influence in Connecticut, it's the one time your boating certificate can get revoked. You will lose your right to operate a vessel in Connecticut initially at the arrest time for the first 24 hours. Then you also go through a hearing system very similar to what the Department of Motor Vehicles does for driving under the influence. The operator has a right to present facts against how his license should not be revoked, etc. And then that's a separate hearing from the court as well.
So after there is a BUI, they've been arrested, they're going through the legal process. How does MAD support the victims or anybody that was part of, a boating accident?
Sure. So MAD, just like if it were on the roads or in the water, we could get involved in a couple of different reasons. When it comes to a simple arrest, if we get a phone call or an alert from a concerned citizen or from law enforcement that there needs to be attention brought to this case, Our court monitoring program will go into court, and we can work with state's attorneys to try to understand what's going on with the process of the case and hopefully provide some additional information. If there has been a crash or some sort of incident where now we have victims involved, we have a full-time victim advocate department in our office, and we also have 24-hour victim services across the country. So when there has been an incident and victims are involved, we'll reach out to those families. We'll see if they would like our services. And if they do, we provide 24-hour a day at no cost to those victims. They can contact us at any point. We also attend every single court proceeding with them. We ensure that they know that their rights are being upheld within the criminal justice system. We help understand the terminologies that happen within the criminal justice system. It's very confusing. It can be overwhelming for the general public, but if you are in a state of either grief or healing, if you've been injured, we want to make sure that they understand that they do have rights to be upheld within the criminal justice system. So we do that as well.
So if someone felt that they might benefit from MAD services, how do they get a hold of you?
Sure. We have a Connecticut office. We service the entire state from corner to corner, and we're located in East Haven at 317 Foxen Road. They can find us at our website at mad.org, and you can find our local office in that way as well. We have a Facebook page, MadCT on Facebook. You can service us there as well. So again, if we're not in the office, there is a 24-hour hotline that you can reach out to, and you'll always have someone to talk to, no matter if it's just wanting to get involved by volunteering because you're interested in keeping our roadways and our waterways safe, or if you've been affected by some sort of crash, we can be there as well all the time.
Great. Thank you very much for all that great information. We're going to take a quick break and have a public service announcement, and we'll be right back.
We love it. It's so much fun.
It's exciting.
Esto es vida.
Why do I have to wear a life jacket?
We wear it to be safe.
I've got mine on.
We're teaching our kids about safe boating.
Cogí un pescado así de grande.
We all love this life.
Wear it and love the life. This message brought to you by the National Safe Boating Council.
Hi, and welcome back. So I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the training that you guys give either to victims or to police officers or anything like that. So
Sure. So MAD, actually, we work closely with our court-based victim advocates and then advocates across the country, but we receive victim advocate training through our MAD National office and services there. We ensure that we know all of the different stages that a victim may need and what they could benefit from by having some services, not just from an organization, but within the court systems. We also do law enforcement training to recognize for law enforcement, they have, different trends that are going on, different laws that have been passed that either we've worked on or that have come up, but also how to work with victims and know that the importance of law enforcement and the victim connection is just so vital for them in their healing and their process. The first to encounter a crash, whether on the roads or within the water, and that victim is going to remember exactly who that law enforcement officer was. So we do death notification training for law enforcement. We provide all sorts of resources for them as well so they can stay up to date when it comes to our specifics of impaired driving.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Captain, do you want to talk a little bit about how the EnCon officers are trained throughout the state?
Certainly. First of all officers are post-certified police officers, Standards and Training Council. So they're fully certified police officers, and while they're there at the academy, just like all the other municipal police and state officers, they're going to get driving under the influence training, where they learn how to detect drivers under the influence, operators in vehicles, and how to do basic field sobriety tests. Once they come to work for us, our environmental conservation police officers, we give them certainly specified boating training, how to operate our vessels, how to detect boating operation that may be under the influence, and then how to follow through with some of those testing. One of the things that we've done here is we've brought in the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators, administers a boating under the influence seated sobriety test. That is something new that's been validated since 2011, being used on a national level. Some of our officers are put together, have gone through that training, and a number of other municipal and state officers around Connecticut have also been through that training. And we've incorporated some of our prosecutors and some of our other defense folks, along with the court systems here in Connecticut, have been through that. So they're aware of this, and it's been used in several of our under the influence cases through the past years. Also want to bring out the fact that our cooperation and work with MAD and MAD CT and Johanna and her crew, they've recognized our officers for boating under the influence arrests since 2012. We want to thank you for all your help in that.
Thank you. We appreciate all that help.
And so they get a little recognition at some of the awards assemblies, and is particularly under the boating under the influence side. So thank you for all your help.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That sounds like a lot of training that you guys go through. So thank you both for all that you do, and thank you again for joining me today. So again, I want to thank everyone. Remember that boating and alcohol don't mix, and always wear your life jacket. Thank you.